Problems exacerbated by overpopulation include the increased demand for resources, such as fresh water and food, and consumption of natural resources such as fossil fuels faster than the rate of regeneration. As the number of human minds on the planet grows, productivity and innovation theoretically grow, which means that more and more people could potentially have access to necessary resources. The key issue here is that some countries and some people have so many resources that they can't help but waste them, and some don't have enough. Providing free contraception, for example, would curb population growth, but it's not a comprehensive solution to the issues that overpopulation is magnifying, especially in places with relatively low populations and high poverty rates. Instead of spending money on population control and family planning, we should focus our efforts and funds on redistribution of resources and a transition to clean energy. Food, like money, is unevenly distributed, but we are producing enough of it to go around. For example, the world's farmers are harvesting hundreds of millions of tons more grain each year on tens of millions of acres less land than they did in the 1970s and 80s, according to USDA figures. This supports the hypothesis that efficiency is improving with population growth. And according to the Journal of Sustainable Agriculture, we already grow enough food for 10 billion people. People just need to avoid generating food waste, redistribute unused and edible food to those in need, and recycle and dispose of the rest as sustainably as possible. This results in less food waste at every step of the process. Types of food that can be donated include perishable produce from wholesalers and grocery stores, surplus prepared food from restaurants, and unharvested food from farmers. In addition, this country has a significant problem with billionaires. As with food, billionaires sit on massive amounts of money which never get spent and have much more than they need to have a good life. A Brookings Institute study found that the top 1% of Americans now own more wealth than the middle class, and the top 20% own around 75% of the nation's wealth. Our capitalist economy has resulted in rising income inequality and concentration of wealth at the top income brackets. A good portion of this top bracket wealth must be redistributed away, and either invested in green infrastructure or given to people in poverty. In the short term, a progressive income tax will help solve this issue. In the long term, however, a transition away from capitalism seems like the best solution to curb this rising inequality and begin to remedy it, working towards a more equal society in which people don't have to die from poverty anymore. A transition to clean energy could be greatly facilitated by divesting in the Pentagon and the fossil fuel industry. The Pentagon is the single largest consumer of oil and largest source of greenhouse gases on the planet. The bloated military budget goes towards militarizing police and killing innocent people in the war on terror. I hope you can sense my air quotes. We could protect our nation with far less. Diverting funds away from this violent gas giant to clean and renewable energy sources would be a huge step in the right direction. Just 100 energy companies have been responsible for 71% of all industrial emissions since human-driven climate change was officially recognized, and just 20 companies, including household names such as Chevron, Exxon, and Shell, have created more than a third of all carbon emissions in the modern era. These oil and gas companies care more about profits than the environment. Environmental exploitation is essential to their existence. In order to meaningfully reduce climate change, we must divert our energy to a full-scale transition to wind and solar power and shut down fossil fuel companies. Banks and insurers need to divest, and legislation should be enacted to seriously limit the extraction of fossil fuels. After a sufficient amount of energy is coming from clean and renewable sources, consumption of these resources should be banned altogether. Fossil fuel investors need to pivot to financing clean energy instead, and if financial and legal incentives are provided, this should be possible. According to a new report by LUT University in Finland and Energy Watch Group, a German nonprofit, a global transition to 100% renewable energy by 2050 should be possible across all sectors, using a mix of existing and locally available renewable energy sources. These sources include electricity generated by wind and solar power and biofuels. In addition, decentralization of energy production leads to more efficiency. Wind and solar energy can feasibly be produced by households, and that helps to distribute wealth away from giants of industry as well. The government should equip as many homes and community centers as possible with materials for clean energy generation using funds collected from billionaires, the military, and fossil fuel companies. In conclusion, overpopulation is not as much of a concern as the issues that overpopulation is exacerbating. Therefore, in order to survive as a species, we need an unprecedented level of cooperation.